Today we're going to talk about Philip Shepherd, and I love Philip Shepherd's work. I have been seriously doing embodiment work and body awareness, body sensitivity, body um, being for like 5 years. And then I found Philip Shepherd's work, and it was like a whole new vista. It went from Great Lakes to ocean through his work. There's so much. He is such a cool dude. He's probably in his 60s. He has a thing called the embodied present process. As an 18-year-old, he left Canada, got to England, bought a bike, and biked to Japan. So obviously, there were some boats in there. But this kind of sensibility of really experiencing life, really getting into the nitty gritty. Um, and then in Japan studied theater and no theater, and tells really great stories about um, about a Japanese sensibility, right? In Japan, the hara, the belly, is central to being, emoting, expressing. I mean, being and emoting and expressing. So he had direct experience and training in coming out of the head. Like the West is very, very fixated on the head being the most important thing, head of a company, head of a household. Like we are all about the head, and coming into being all about the belly, and then even more specifically, all about the pelvic bowl and the pelvic floor. We relate to life in a completely different way. For one thing, the head and the um, pelvis are joined, right, by the spine. And the head is a closed expression of the bone, and the hips are an open expression of the bone. And it's really very interesting because our head is always looking for the ways that we're separate from the world. And our pelvic floor, our pelvic bowl, our hips are how we are open to the world. It also is what allows us to move through the world. And we can move through the world with openness, or we can move through the world without any feeling at all. Um, and what Philip's work is about moving through the world and letting the world move through us as an integrated being that of which the head is a part, but not the whole. And being able to embody our wholeness as we encounter the world. And that means, there's a line in My Octopus Teacher where it says, the octopus, only 20% of its brain is in its head, the rest is distributed throughout the body. And because of Philip Shepherd's work, when they said that, I was like, same with us. Indeed, like, you've heard people say we only use 10% of our brain. I think that's because we only use the part that we think is in the brain. Um, our entire body is intelligent. Our entire body is sensitive. And more importantly, our entire body is sensitized to the world. The body knows, one of the things he loves to say is the body knows it belongs to the world and that the world belongs to it. And the body knows about 1,000,000 times more what the head knows. And what's interesting about this too, um, I don't think this is his example. I think this is my example, but I think it'll get you there. If you think about someone you know well, when you bring them to mind, there's a full body recollection of that person. And that full body recollection of that person, actually, I think this is his, knows 1,000 details that your mind might be able to start to pick and say, oh, they have brown hair and blue eyes and this kind of skin. Yeah. Um, but your body knows all of that about the person as soon as you bring that person to mind. So it's a level of engagement and a fullness of engagement that his work um, orients us to be able to operate from that is so much richer than the superficial, goal driven mental engine that kind of seems to have taken over a lot of the cultural um, dynamic, the propelling. Let me tell you a couple things right from him. He has, in the embodied present process, four key fundamentals. And the first is wholeness, and that we are speaking and listening from the whole of our being. We're not trying to manage things, we're not trying to organize things. We're more aware of the world than we are of the self that's experiencing it. And we're not trying to jockey to figure out where the self is in relationship to the world. The self is simply a communication tool for receiving and understanding the world. And this wholeness that he speaks of, we can't achieve it, but we also can't escape it. And one of the lovely things is he says it's like the pole star. Navigators don't expect to get to the pole star, but its being there is what allows them to make sense of all of the elements of their trip. He does a much better job of this, but wholeness is as the foundational nature of reality, that we are whole beings encountering the wholeness of the world, and we're equipped for this. This isn't threatening. This is relational. So nice. The next is the pelvic brain, and that coming home to ourself, we have to have that full integration, that coming into our wholeness and into the fullness of ourselves and into our integration is not a mental exercise. It is a whole body experience. And so as we develop our familiarity and capacity with the wholeness of ourselves, most of us are in a little bit of a deficiency where we're always kind of defaulting. We've been trained exceptionally well to default to the mental, to the head, and to be in unison and in harmony and with our felt relationships and our attunement to the world. That all happens in our lower, in our pelvic bowl. Here's a great thing that he talks about too, is that our pelvic bowl is equipped to process our experience and our emotions the same way the viscera that the pelvic bowl upholds digests our food. So, and this is such a great experiment. So, if you have something that's incredibly frustrating and you're trying to figure out what to do with it and you're all up here, bring it slowly and even like use your hands and guide it into your pelvic bowl. And that situation processes. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And then when you operate, one of the things he says too is it's not just being aware of the pelvic bowl, it's being aware from the pelvic bowl. And what's amazing about that is when you're aware from the pelvic bowl, when you are interacting with life and receiving life from this connected, open, relational aspect of our being, we don't have to worry about that this is going to be an egoic choice or this is going to like all of that stuff is something that happens in the head, and we're not operating from the head. We're operating from our belly. We're operating from our center of gravity, from our groundedness. It's really, really beautiful. And in unison, in harmony, it's not about listening to the body, but listening to the world through the body. Let's read that again. It's not about listening to the body. It's about listening to the world through the body. Now, in my experience, there's a listening to the body step, but the step is not the goal. That listening to the world through the body, relating to the world through the body. is so beautiful. For people like me, I was so enraptured with my head that it took me a great deal of time to even listen to the body effectively. I have a thing I talk about that the body's kind of like a kitten under a couch. Like you're like, okay, I'm gonna listen to my body now. The revelation of felt sense can take a few minutes. For a person who's ignored their body for so long to be like, this is what I'm going to do now, for me, needed to be the building of that relationship. Um, but because I did build that relationship, when I read those words of Philip Shepard's, something that I had felt that I'd developed capacity in suddenly became the first step of a beautiful new journey. So I'm just going to read it one more time because I love it so much. It's not about listening to the body, it's about listening to the world through the body. And our body also knows how to receive things. Our body knows how to receive the world. First of all, our body's in constant communication with the whole of the world through our breath, through our food, through simply our being and moving through space. At the molecular level, we're incredibly connected. We're in constant communication and exchange. So, bringing the head's like as brilliant as it is, in as many ways as it is like way behind the game in terms of understanding the relatedness that we all have. And that's part of the brain's function, is to identify threats, identify separation, move things in. And that's a fine function unless it's your only function, right? But this is a conversation I could have for like 4.5 hours. So I'm just going to move to the next thing. So we have wholeness as the foundational nature of reality. We have the pelvic bowl as the balancing to the head, and that this full integrated being in within our body, um, that we can experience the world through our body. His third thing is presence versus presentation, and that you can't be doing both at the same time. So, as kids learn, the whole of our being is 2x or 2y, and so we modify ourselves to make ourselves more acceptable. And presentation mode is seeking to get a response. Whereas presence mode is spacious and easy, not grasping. This is really, really powerful. And it's something I see myself doing in the course of this talk. He's really cute because he'll be like, so I can demonstrate presentation mode, because when I get in presentation mode, I really want to explain something to you. I really want you to get it, and I want to feel like I'm helping you get it. And when I'm in presence, I'm relating to you. I am experiencing you as much as you're experiencing me. And that relationship is far more interesting than either of our acceptability. The nuance of maybe those aspects that wouldn't be acceptable become fascinating, because I'm operating from wholeness. I'm integrated in the whole of my being. And in that presence, there's nothing but relationship. This whole being, this whole experiencing of life is relationship. And am I relating to it? Or am I trying to get myself to be acceptable to it so that, eventually I can win a prize? I don't know. Um, it's really beautiful. There's, again, we could probably have a whole conversation just on the difference between presence and presentation. And the fourth principle of the embodied present process is the experience of reality, feeling the world moving through me, how to feel wholeness and the reality in which we abide. We compromise our experience and our breath all the time, to be in that presentation mode, to not be our full selves, to move us into narrow channels that we might be more acceptable in the world. And the world is asking us to be our full self. And the experience of being our full self is so much more interesting than the masks we can wear. Um, mm. So, this experience of reality through the body as a whole integrated being, our internal experience and our external experience, and the relationship between them. It's really deep and rich stuff. And in New Self, New World, he spends a lot of time going through the hero journey. Um, and essentially, this is like such a nutshell. So it doesn't do it justice at all. But the hero is in the pelvic bowl. It is our essential self. And the tyrant is the mental space, the brain, thinking mind, the scheming mind, the what the Taoists call 10,000 strategies. And the hero needs to kill the tyrant to free the heart. And there's a piece of the hero journey where the hero has to kill the hero every day so as not to become the tyrant. And this is a regular, even our most altruistic mental being has to be eliminated for the authenticity of what is arising in us in this moment. And every moment that is new, and every moment that is accessed from the core of our being. There is a difference that I invite you to play with, of moving from the head to the heart. It's a good move. It's a wonderful move. But when we move from the head to the heart, so often we are still trying to access the mind's idea of what should be being experienced or expressed through the heart. When we can truly access our pelvic floor and be in our pelvic floor, in the pelvic bowl, and allow our life to be processed there. When we come back up into the heart, into that space of intentional relating, it's a completely different experience than when we came down from our mind. When we come up from our pelvis into our heart, our relational attunement is a completely different ball of wax. So I love the hero journey, um, being the dynamic of the relationship between our gut and our head in order to free our heart. So I'm going to leave it at that today. We're going to talk about him in discussion group, and that will be posted. And then most of the practices we do for the next 10 days um, will be based on his work. He's got some beautiful practices I'm happy to share. And thank you for listening. It's really, really good. And I hope you liked it.